I gave my son everything. His wife threw away my late wife's ashes, so I took everything back. My old man used to say something that stuck with me through 2 tours, a marriage, and more years than I care to count. He'd grip my shoulder with those callous hands and tell me, "Give with a warm hand, not a cold one." Took me decades to understand what he meant. Dead men can't see gratitude. Living ones shouldn't have to wait for a funeral to show it. I'm Frank, 65 years old, Vietnam vet, widower, and for a while there, I thought I was the world's biggest fool. Turns out I was just a man who believed in family. Big difference between those two things, though it took me a garbage truck and a Thanksgiving dinner to figure that out. Helen died 3 years back, pancreatic cancer, the kind that moves fast and doesn't give you time to argue with God about fairness. 6 weeks from diagnosis to me standing in a funeral home picking out a casket and wondering how you're supposed to keep living when the person who taught you how is gone. We had this big house in the suburbs, 4 bedrooms, the kind of place that made sense when Mark was growing up and Helen had her book club meetings and Sunday dinners with neighbors. After she passed, the house felt like a museum. Every room was a shrine to her. The kitchen where she'd make her Sunday gravy. The garden she fussed over like it was our 3rd kid. Even the thermostat had her fingerprints on it. She kept it at 72 degrees. I tried changing it once. Felt like betrayal. So I sold it. Got $620,000. After the mortgage and realtor fees, I cleared about $500,000. That's real money where I come from. The kind that sits in your bank account like a ticking time bomb because you know somebody's going to want a piece of it eventually. I bought myself a trailer in Florida. Nothing fancy. One of those RV parks near Apalachicola where the rent's cheap and nobody cares if you crack a beer at 10 in the morning. My plan was simple. Fish. Read. Maybe make some friends at the VFW. Spend my days not bothering anybody and not being bothered. That lasted about 4 months. Then Mark called. My son, 37 years old. Good kid. Always has been. Worked as a manager at some tech company. Decent salary. Benefits. The kind of job that keeps you comfortable but never quite gets you ahead. He'd been married to Karen for 2 years by then. Karen was what you'd call ambitious. She had opinions about everything. The right neighborhood. The right schools. The right kind of countertops. Quartz, not granite. There's apparently a difference that matters to people like her. She wasn't mean, just expensive, and very sure about what she deserved out of life. Mark called me on a Tuesday evening. Said they'd found their dream house. 4 bedrooms. Colonial style. Good school district, even though they didn't have kids yet. Oak floors. Updated kitchen. Big backyard. All the boxes checked. Price tag was $750,000. They'd been approved for a mortgage, but needed 20% down. That's $150,000. They had about $30,000 saved. Mark's voice was shaking when he told me. He didn't ask directly. Just painted the picture and let me do the math. I looked around my trailer. 11 feet wide, 40 feet long. Everything I owned fit inside it with room to spare. I had $500,000 sitting in the bank earning nothing. My kid needed help. I told him I'd think about it. Karen sent me 17 text messages over the next 24 hours. Pictures of the house. The kitchen. The master bathroom. The chandelier. The backyard. Each message more urgent than the last. The final one just said, "Please, Frank, this is the one." I called Mark Friday night. Told him I'd help. But not just a down payment. I'd give them $250,000. Enough for the down payment and a cushion. Furniture. Repairs. Whatever they needed. I wanted them to start right. Not scraping by. Actually comfortable. Mark cried on the phone. Grown man. Sobbing like he was 10 again. Said I was the best dad in the world. Said he'd never forget it. Said they'd pay me back someday. I told him to forget the payback. Just take care of his family. That's what money's for. Karen's thank you was shorter. A text with 3 emojis and, "OMG, Frank, you're a lifesaver." Should have been my first clue right there. Now here's the thing. I'm not stupid. You don't make it to 65 without learning a few things about people. Money changes folks. Sometimes for the better. Usually for something else. And I'd seen enough of my years to know that even family can surprise you when large amounts of cash get involved. So I called George, my lawyer. We served together in '71. He went to law school on the GI Bill. I went into HVAC repair. But we stayed close. Fishing buddies. The kind of friend who will tell you when you're being an idiot because he actually gives a damn if you listen. I met him at his office that week. Laid out the situation. George leaned back in his chair and gave me that look. The one that says you're about to hear something you need to hear, but won't want to. Frank, he said, $250,000 isn't a gift. It's an investment. And every investment needs documentation. I started to protest. Started saying it was family. That I trusted Mark. That this felt cold. George cut me off. It's not about Mark. It's about Karen. And it's about protecting yourself. You just lost Helen. You sold your home. You're vulnerable. I'm not letting you hand over $250,000 without some kind of protection. He pulled out a legal pad. Started writing. Secured promissory note. You loan them the money. They sign acknowledging it's a loan secured against the property. Payable on demand. If you ever need it back, or if things go sideways, you have legal recourse. The house becomes collateral. I didn't like it. Felt transactional. Clinical. This was my kid. George looked at me like I was a private who just asked why we needed to wear helmets in combat. Frank, I've been doing this 40 years. You know how many families I've seen destroyed over money? If they've got nothing to hide, they'll sign. If they won't sign, that tells you everything. I thought about it for a long time. About Helen. About Mark. About Karen's 17 text messages. Draw it up. I finally said. The document was simple. 2 pages of legal language that basically said, Frank Reynolds loans Mark and Karen Reynolds $250,000, secured against property at 428 Maple Ridge Drive. Loan payable on demand with reasonable interest. Failure to pay within 30 days of written demand allows foreclosure. George explained it like I was 5. This protects you. If they sell, you get paid first. If things go bad, you can call the loan. It's ironclad. But here's the key. Don't mention foreclosure. Don't say loan. Tell them it's paperwork for the bank. Proof the money's legitimate. Make it boring. Make it routine. I practiced the speech in my truck. Mark and Karen came over that weekend to sign. They were excited. Giddy. Karen kept showing me her Pinterest boards for decorating. Mark couldn't stop smiling. I laid the papers on my fold-out table. Said exactly what George told me to say. The bank needs proof the down payment money is clean. This is just a promissory note showing the funds came from me. Standard stuff. My lawyer insisted on it. Karen barely looked at it, flipped to the signature page, and scribbled her name. Frank, you're so old school with all this paperwork. Nobody does this anymore. But whatever makes you feel better. Mark hesitated for a second. I saw him squint at the word secured and payable on demand. But then Karen tugged his arm, said they had to meet the movers. He shrugged and signed. They left 20 minutes later. Karen kissed my cheek. Called me the world's best father-in-law. Mark hugged me tight and whispered thank you about 6 times. I stood in my doorway watching them drive away in Karen's leased BMW. I looked down at my copy of the promissory note. George's voice echoed in my head. If they got nothing to hide, they'll sign. They'd signed. I took that copy and put it in my truck's glove box, right next to the registration and insurance card. A safe place. A boring place. A logical place. George had filed a notarized original at his office. Naturally, that's what lawyers do. The other things, the things that actually mattered, those I kept in an old army footlocker under my bed. My discharge papers. My father's Purple Heart from Korea. Letters Helen wrote me during my second tour. And wrapped in a handkerchief at the very bottom. A small wooden box I didn't like thinking about too much. Helen's ashes. We never did a big funeral. She didn't want it. Didn't want to be stuck in some cemetery where nobody visits. She wanted to be with me. So I kept part of her ashes in that card box. It fit in my palm. I'd hold it sometimes when I couldn't sleep. Help somehow. I locked the footlocker. put the key on my keyring, tried to forget about all of it, because that's what insurance is, right? You hope you never need it. You pay the premiums, file the paperwork, then go on living like nothing's wrong. Most of the time, nothing is wrong. Most of the time, people are decent. Most of the time, family is family. Most of the time. 2 years passed. Good years, mostly. I settled into my Florida routine. Fishing at dawn. Coffee at the bait shop where old-timers argued about lures. Made some friends. Other vets. Widowers. Guys who understood that silence isn't loneliness. It's just being okay with yourself. Mark and Karen sent Christmas cards. Photos of the house. Updates about renovations. Karen turned the basement into a home gym. Mark built a deck. Everything was perfect. They'd thank me in every card. Sometimes when they visited, Karen would hug me and say they couldn't have done it without me, and I believed her. Then came Hurricane Ian. September 2022. Category 4. The wind didn't howl. It screamed. My trailer park got 6 feet of surge. I watched my neighbor's RV float past like a bathtub toy. The water came fast. I grabbed my go bag, my lockbox with documents, my father's medals. Wait, no. The medals were in the footlocker. I grabbed what I could. The water was rising. I had seconds. Got my wallet, my keys, the go bag. That was it. I had to leave everything else behind. The footlocker, the medals, the photos. Everything. Red Cross put me in a high school gym for 3 days. Cots, bottled water, that smell of institutional food, and wet concrete. I sat there with 200 other people who'd lost everything and thought, I'm too old for this. Mark called on day 2, saw the news, asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. Just wet. Trailer was totaled, but insurance would cover some of it. I'd figure it out. He didn't hesitate. Dad, come stay with us. We have the space. Guest room is yours for as long as you need. Don't argue. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say I'd find another trailer park. Another quiet spot where I could disappear. But I was tired. The kind of tired that makes you forget why you're supposed to be proud. Okay, I said, just for a little while. Stay as long as you want. Mark said, seriously, Dad, it's your house too. You made it possible. Your house too. Those words felt true when he said them. I drove north in my old Ford pickup. The truck had been parked on higher ground, so it survived. Everything I own now fit in 4 duffel bags in the bed. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd given them $250,000 for a house. Now I was moving in with a suitcase like a refugee. But the truck was there, and in the glove box, untouched by the flood, was that folded piece of paper. I didn't think about it, didn't even check on it, just drove north. Karen met me at the door. She'd aged well, Pilates and facials and expensive self-care. She hugged me, said all the right things. Frank, oh my God, we're so glad you're safe. You poor thing, don't worry about anything. You're family. She showed me to the guest room, 3rd floor, farthest from the master. Nice room, beige walls, queen bed with a catalog comforter, dresser, chair, window overlooking the backyard. I cleared the closet for you, Karen said, and you have your own bathroom, totally private. Make yourself at home. I thanked her, unpacked my bags, hung up my 3 shirts and 2 pairs of jeans, put my toiletries in the bathroom. I'd managed to save some photos, a few documents, but most of my past was underwater now. I sat on the bed and looked around. It felt like a hotel room. First week was fine. Mark was attentive. Karen made dinners. We'd eat together and talk about normal things. Weather, news, Mark's job. They asked about my plans. I said I'd start looking for a new place soon. Something smaller. Karen nodded enthusiastically. No rush, Frank. But yeah, we'll help you look whenever you're ready. Second week, things shifted. Subtle at first. Karen started leaving notes. Little post, it's on the bathroom mirror. Please remember put the toilet seat down. Keep your shoes in your room. Trying to keep floors clean. Guest towels are for guests. Your towels are the blue ones. I followed every rule. Didn't complain. I was a guest in their house. By week 3, I felt like furniture. The kind you inherit from a dead relative and don't have the heart to throw out, but don't know where to put. So you shove it in a corner and hope nobody notices. Karen stopped making eye contact. She breezed past me in the hallway on her phone, talking about brunch plans and yoga classes. Mark worked 60 hours a week. When he was home, he was exhausted. We'd gnawed at each other, exchanged pleasantries, but we didn't really talk. I started eating breakfast before they woke up, spending days at the library, walking the neighborhood, anything to not be in the house. Because the house had a vibe now, a tension, like I was a stain they were trying to ignore. Then came Thanksgiving. Karen announced it 3 weeks out. She was hosting 30 people, her parents, Mark's cousins, friends from book club. "It's going to be amazing," she said, scrolling through Pinterest on her iPad. Harvest theme, burgundy and gold, cloth napkins, a charcuterie board that'll make people weep. Mark looked nervous. "Babe, that's a lot of work. Maybe keep it small this year. With Dad here and everything." Karen's smile tightened. "No, it's fine. Frank won't be in the way. Right, Frank? You'll probably want to watch football in your room anyway." She didn't look at me when she said it. I nodded. "Sure, whatever you need." The week before Thanksgiving, Karen went into full mode. She cleaned like a demon, wiped baseboards, polished doorknobs, fluffed pillows nobody was allowed to sit on. The house stopped being a home, became a stage set, and I was a prop that didn't fit the aesthetic. I kept a few things in my room, personal things I'd managed to save from the flood. Some photos of Helen in a Ziploc bag, my military dog tags, a small American flag, and one thing I'd salvaged that meant more to me than almost anything. I'd gone back to the trailer park a week after the storm, waded through the mud and debris, found the footlocker, waterlogged, rusted, falling apart. Inside, most things were destroyed. The letters were pulp, the papers dissolved. But there were 2 things that survived. My father's Purple Heart, tarnished but intact, and a small wooden box. Helen's ashes. The box was damaged, but the ashes were still there, still dry somehow. I brought them with me, put them on the closet shelf in my room, the only pieces of my past that made it through the storm. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I went to the pharmacy for my blood pressure meds. Took about an hour. When I got back, I climbed the stairs to my room, opened the door, and stopped. The air smelled wrong. Chemical lemons and something else. Something missing. My eyes went to closet shelf. Empty. My heart kicked. I checked the floor. Under the bed. Behind the chair. Nothing. Yanked open the closet door. Empty except for my shirts and wire hangers. The Purple Heart. The ashes. Gone. I stood there trying to process it, trying to understand. These weren't just in the room. They were the only things I had left, the only things that survived. I walked downstairs. My legs felt disconnected. Karen was in the kitchen, arranging name cards on the dining table. Little calligraphy tags that said Aunt Deb and Connor. I stopped in the doorway, tried to keep my voice steady. "Karen, did you move anything from my room?" She glanced up, annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. "I cleaned, Frank. The whole house needed deep cleaning before Thursday." "Why?" There were some things on my closet shelf. A medal, a small wooden box. "Where are they?" She blinked, tilted her head. "Oh, that old junk? I threw it out. Garbage truck came this morning." The world tilted. I grabbed the doorframe. "You what?" "I threw it away," she repeated slower, like I was hard of hearing. "Frank, that stuff was falling apart. Disgusting. Water damaged. It didn't go with the room. I'm trying to make this house look nice, and that was basically trash. I did you a favor, honestly. You should thank me." My mouth moved, but no sound came out. I tried again. "Karen, that medal, that was my father's Purple Heart. From Korea." She waved her hand. "Well, I'm sorry, but it was ruined. You couldn't even read it anymore. And that weird little box. What even was that?" The room spun. That box. That was Helen. That was my wife's ashes. She stopped, turned slowly. No horror, no shock, just irritation. Oh, for God's sake, Frank. That's disgusting. Who keeps cremated remains on a closet shelf? That's not normal. That's honestly disturbing. I have 30 people coming here in 2 days. I'm not having anyone see that kind of thing in my house. You need to let go of the past. It's been 3 years. It's not healthy. I stood there, waiting for her to hear herself, waiting for the words to register, waiting for some sign of humanity. She picked up her phone, started scrolling. Anyway, it's done. The truck already came. I need to finish these place cards. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My father's medal, the last piece of him I had, Helen's ashes, the last part of her, in a garbage truck, mixed with coffee grounds and junk mail and Karen's idea of trash. I heard Mark's car in the driveway, heard him come in through the garage. He walked into the kitchen, saw my face. Dad, you okay? I couldn't look away from Karen. She was texting now, smiling at something on her screen. Mark, I said. My voice sounded far away. Your wife threw away Grandpa's Purple Heart. And your mother. Karen's head snapped up. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Frank. I didn't know what that box was. How was I supposed to know you were keeping ashes in a guest room? That's bizarre. Mark looked between us. Wait, what? I was cleaning, Karen said, her voice rising, preparing for Thanksgiving. That room was a mess. There was this rusty old metal and some weird water-damaged box on the shelf. They looked like garbage. They were garbage. I cleaned them out. Mark's face went pale. Mom's ashes. It was just a box. Karen threw her hands up. I didn't kill her. She's been dead for years. Frank needs to move on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He's living in the past. It's depressing. It's morbid. I was trying to help him. I looked at my son, really looked at him, waiting for him to say something, waiting for him to defend his mother's memory, his grandfather's sacrifice, waiting for him to be the man I raised. Mark opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Karen, looked at me. His face was torn, conflicted. I could see the wheels turning, the calculation happening. Then he said, Dad, I know you're upset, but it was an accident. Karen didn't know. She didn't mean anything by it. Karen jumped in. Thank you. Finally, someone reasonable. Mark, I said quietly, she threw your mother away. She threw your grandfather's Purple Heart away. She called them trash. He shifted his weight. Wouldn't meet my eyes. I understand, Dad. I do. But you got to see it from her perspective. She's been stressed, planning this whole dinner, trying to make everything perfect. And honestly, maybe it is time to, move forward. Mom wouldn't want you holding on to ashes like that. It's been 3 years. The words hit me like a fist. 3 years. As if grief had an expiration date. As if love came with a timer. Table this, Mark said, his voice pleading now. Let's just get through Thanksgiving. We can talk about it after. As a family. Please, Dad, don't make this into a thing. Not now. Not with 30 people coming. Karen nodded, crossed her arms. Exactly. It's just stuff, Frank. Things. Material objects. Your wife wouldn't want you obsessing over them. She'd want you to be happy. To move on with your life. I stared at them. These people. My son, his wife, living in the house I bought, telling me my wife and my father were just stuff. You're right, I heard myself say. My voice was calm. Too calm. It's just stuff. Karen's face relaxed. Oh, thank God. I knew you'd understand. Mark exhaled. Thanks, Dad. I knew we could work this out. We didn't work anything out, I said quietly. But you're right. This is your house. I'm just a guest. I shouldn't have expectations. I turned and walked up the stairs, went to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached inside and scraped me clean. I thought about Helen, about the day she died, about holding her hand in that hospital room, about promising I'd keep her close, about the little wooden box that fit in my palm, in a landfill now, in a garbage dump, because it didn't match Karen's aesthetic. I thought about my father, about the day they gave me that Purple Heart after his funeral, about the weight of it in my hand, about what it meant, about Korea, about blood and sacrifice and honor, in a garbage truck now, mixed with potato peels and Diet Coke cans, because Karen was cleaning for a party. Thanksgiving came. 30 people packed into the house. The house I bought. Karen glowed, gave a toast about gratitude, about being blessed, about their beautiful home and wonderful life. She looked right at me when she said blessed, and smiled. I sat at the far end of the table, ate dry turkey, watched my son laugh at her jokes, watched him carve the bird like a king in his castle, and I felt something inside me go cold. Not angry, not sad, just cold, like a switch flipping, like a door closing. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the guest room, stared at the empty closet shelf where Helen used to be, and I thought about insurance, about paperwork, about documents in glove boxes, about warm hands and cold hands, about what my father would do, what Helen would want me to do, about respect, and what happens when it's gone. I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't break anything. I just sat there in the dark, in a house that was mine but didn't feel like mine, with people who were family but didn't act like family, and I felt the sadness drain away, replaced by something else, something colder, something patient, because sadness is what you feel when you lose something. But I hadn't lost anything. It had been taken. And there's a difference. Black Friday morning came cold and quiet. I woke up at 5:30. Old habits from the service. Your body doesn't forget that internal clock even 40 years later. I made coffee in their fancy espresso machine, the kind that cost more than my first car. Listened to the house settle and creak. Heard Mark and Karen upstairs getting ready for the sales. They came down around 6. All smiles and excitement. Karen was wearing yoga pants and a North Face jacket. Mark had on his weekend casual look. Expensive, but try not to look expensive. Dad, you sure you don't want to come? Mark asked. Target's got some crazy deals. Might be good to get out of the house. I sipped my coffee. Looked at him over the rim of the mug. No thanks. I'm good here. You two have fun. Karen grabbed her purse. Keys jangling. We'll probably be gone most of the day. There's leftover turkey in the fridge if you get hungry. Oh, and Frank, could you maybe not use the espresso machine? It's kind of finicky and I don't want it breaking. There's instant coffee in the pantry. She said it with a smile, like she was doing me a favor by pointing out where the cheap stuff was kept. Sure thing, I said. They left in a rush. SUV backing out of the driveway. The same driveway I paid for. Going to buy more things they didn't need with money they didn't have. The house was finally quiet. Really quiet. The kind of quiet you only get when you're truly alone. No fake pleasantries. No walking on eggshells. Just silence. I sat at their kitchen table, the one with the reclaimed wood top that Karen bought from some artisan in Vermont. Drank my coffee. Looked around at the life I'd financed. And I thought about what my old man used to say. Not the warm hand, cold hand thing. Something else. Something he told me after I came back from my second tour. I was angry then. Young and stupid and angry about things that don't matter now. He sat me down with a beer and said, Son, there's 2 kinds of bears in this world. The kind that roars when you poke it, and the kind that stays quiet, remembers where you sleep, and comes back when you're not expecting it. I asked him which kind he was. He just smiled and said, I'm the kind that's still here. I thought about that, about bears, about patience, about the difference between reacting and responding, between anger and strategy. Something had shifted in me during that Thanksgiving dinner. Watching Karen toast to gratitude in a house built with my money. Watching Mark laugh at her jokes while his mother rotted in a landfill. Watching 30 people celebrate abundance that came from my grief. The sadness was gone. burned away. What was left was colder, clearer, more focused, like a switch had flipped, like waking up from a long sleep. I went out to my truck. The old Ford sat in the driveway, looking out a place next to Mark's Audi and Karen's BMW. I opened the passenger door, popped the glove box, registration, insurance card, owner's manual, a pack of wet wipes from some gas station, and there, folded in thirds, slightly yellowed at the edges, was a promissory note. I unfolded it carefully. Read every word, even though I didn't need to. I'd read it 100 times when George first drafted it. Knew every clause by heart. $250,000 principal. Secured against the property at 428 Maple Ridge Drive. Payable on demand. Interest accruing at 5% annually. Compounded monthly. I did the math in my head. 3 years. 36 months of compound interest. The total came to about $284,000. I sat in the truck cab for a long time, holding that piece of paper, thinking about insurance, about premiums you hope you never have to collect, about policies you forget about until the day comes when you need them. George had been right. If they had nothing to hide, they'd sign, and they'd sign, barely even read it, just scribbled their names, and went off to dream about their future in their dream house. But dreams built on other people's money have a way of turning into nightmares. I pulled out my phone. George's number was still in my contacts. We'd talked just a few weeks back about fishing. He'd caught a 10-pound bass and wouldn't stop bragging about it. Good guy. Loyal. The kind of friend who tells you the truth, even when you don't want to hear it. I press call. It rang 4 times. Then his gravelly voice. Frank? Everything all right? You don't usually call this early. I need you to do something for me, I said. My voice sounded strange. Flat, like it was coming from somewhere far away. Pause on his end. I could hear a TV in the background. Some Black Friday commercial screaming about doorbusters. What kind of something? That promissory note. The one for Mark and Karen. I need you to activate it. Long silence. The TV got quieter. I imagined George sitting up, getting serious. Frank, are you sure about this? That's the nuclear option. That's not something you walk back from. I'm sure. What happened? So I told him about Hurricane Ian, about losing everything, about moving in with Mark and Karen, about becoming invisible in my own gift, about the cleaning spree, about finding my room empty, about Karen throwing away my father's Purple Heart and Helen's ashes like they were spoiled leftovers, about Mark's face when he chose his wife over his mother's memory, about him saying it was just stuff, just things, about being told to move on, move forward, let go. George didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, the silence stretched out for a long time. Jesus Christ, Frank, he finally said. His voice was quiet. Angry. I'm sorry. That's beyond the pale. That's not just disrespect. That's cruelty. Can you do it? I can. The note's solid. Ironclad. They signed it. Notarized. Filed. But Frank, you need to understand what this means. Once I send that demand letter, once we start foreclosure proceedings, there's no going back. Mark will hate you. Karen will paint you as a monster. You'll lose them. Maybe forever. I looked out the truck window. At the house. At the perfectly manicured lawn. At the decorative wreath on the door that probably cost $200. At the life I'd made possible. George, I said, I already lost them. I just didn't know it until yesterday. He sighed. The sound of a man who's seen this movie before. All right, I'll draft the demand letter. Certified mail. They'll have 30 days from receipt to pay in full or negotiate a payment plan. If they don't comply, we file foreclosure. The note is secured against the property, so we're in first position. We will win. How long until they get it? I can have it out Monday. They'll receive it by Wednesday at the latest. Do it. Another pause. Then, Frank, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Some people need to learn that actions have consequences. That family isn't a free pass to treat people like garbage. Your old man will be proud. I closed my eyes, thought about my father, about his Purple Heart sitting in a garbage dump. My old man would have done it 3 weeks ago. George laughed. Dark humor. Yeah, he probably would have. All right, brother. Consider it done. I'll call you when it's sent. We hung up. I sat in the truck for another 20 minutes, holding the promissory note, feeling its weight, not the paper, the promise, the power, the consequences folded into those 2 pages. The thing about sleeping bears is they look peaceful when they're hibernating, harmless even. You can poke them, steal from them, disrespect them, and they just lie there taking it. But when they wake up, when they finally open their eyes and stand up and remember every single thing you did while they were sleeping, well, that's when you realize you made a mistake. That's when you realize the bear wasn't sleeping. He was just being patient. Mark and Karen came home around 4 in the afternoon, laughing, loaded down with shopping bags. Target, Best Buy, Bed Bath & Beyond. Karen was on her phone, showing pictures to someone, probably her book club friends, bragging about her deals. Mark saw me in the kitchen. Hey, Dad, you been here all day? Man, you missed out. It was insane. We got this 85-inch TV for like 40% off. We're going to mount it in the living room. It's going to look incredible. I was making a sandwich. Turkey from yesterday. The stuffing that tasted like cardboard. Sounds great. You guys have fun. Karen dumped her bags on the counter. Nearly knocked over my plate. Oh my God. So much fun. Exhausting but worth it. Frank, we got you something. Since you've been such a good sport about everything. She rummaged through a bag, pulled out a black t-shirt, unfolded it. It said, World's Okayest Grandpa in white letters. I'm not a grandpa. Mark and Karen don't have kids. It's funny, right? Karen said, because you're not technically a grandpa yet. But like, you could be someday. It was on clearance. $3. Thanks, I said. That's real thoughtful. Mark looked uncomfortable. Babe, Dad's not even a grandpa. It's fine, I said. I appreciate the thought. They didn't hear the edge in my voice. Didn't notice anything. They were too busy talking about where to mount the TV, about whether to hire someone or do it themselves, about whether the wall could support the weight. I ate my sandwich, listened to them debate, watched them measure and plan and dream in a house that wasn't fully theirs. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just cold calculation. The weekend passed. Saturday, Sunday, I was a perfect house guest. Quiet, helpful, invisible when needed. I helped Mark mount the TV, held the level while he drilled, handed him tools, complimented the placement. Karen made a pot roast on Sunday, told me it was her grandmother's recipe. I ate it and said it was delicious even though it was dry and oversalted. Thanked her for thinking of me. They had no idea, no clue what was coming. They went about their lives like everything was fine, like Thanksgiving hadn't happened, like they hadn't thrown away my past and told me to get over it. And I let them, because that's what you do when you're waiting. You don't telegraph. You don't threaten. You just wait, patient, quiet, like a bear. Monday morning. I was up at 5:30 as usual. Made coffee, the cheap instant kind from the pantry, since the espresso machine was off limits. Sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun come up. Somewhere in George's office, a secretary was printing a letter on official law firm letterhead. Somewhere in the postal system, a certified mail label was being generated. Somewhere, the wheels of consequence were turning. Slowly, inevitably, like a freight train that can't be stopped once it starts moving. Mark and Karen had no idea. I spent the week being pleasant, went to the library, took long walks, stayed out of their way. They barely noticed I was there, which was fine, better than fine. Wednesday, December 1st came gray and cold. I was in the living room, reading a paperback Western from the library, one of those Louis L'Amour books where the hero is a quiet man who takes abuse until he doesn't anymore. Felt appropriate. Around 11, the doorbell rang. Karen was working from home. Some kind of marketing job where she took video calls and talked about synergy and brand awareness. She came downstairs in her work-from-home uniform, leggings and an oversized sweater. She opened the door, talked to someone, signed something, came back holding a cardboard envelope. Certified mail. Her face was confused. "It's for Mark," she said, looking at the return address. "From some law office in Philadelphia. Why would we be getting certified mail from a law firm?" I turned a page in my book. Didn't look up. Probably nothing. Maybe something with his job. She turned the envelope over, reading, frowning. "It's addressed to both of us, Mark and Karen Reynolds. Why would a lawyer be sending us certified mail? You should probably wait for Mark to open it." She looked at me. Something flickered in her eyes. Suspicion, maybe. But it passed. "Yeah, you're right. I'll wait." She put the envelope on the counter and went back upstairs. I heard her video call resume. Something about Q4 targets and customer engagement. I went back to my book. The hero was about to confront the men who'd burned down his ranch. I knew how it would end. The hero always wins. Because he's patient. Because he waits for the right moment. Because justice delayed isn't justice denied. It's just justice with interest. Mark came home around 6, tired from work, loosened his tie, dropped his bag by the door. Karen practically ran downstairs. "Babe, you got certified mail. From a law office. What's that about?" Mark's face went confused, then worried. "Law office? We're not being sued, are we?" He picked up the envelope, looked at the return address. His face went pale. I saw it from across the room. The moment of recognition. The moment he connected the dots. "It's from Dad's lawyer," he said quietly. Karen grabbed it. "What? Why would your dad's lawyer be sending us mail?" Mark didn't answer. Just stood there staring at the envelope like it was a bomb. "Open it," Karen said. Her voice had an edge now. Fear dressed up as irritation. Mark tore it open, pulled out several pages, started reading. His eyes moved across the first page. Once, twice, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Karen grabbed the letter, started reading out loud, her voice getting higher with each word. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, demand for immediate payment. Promissory note executed on $250,000 principal, $34,000 accrued interest, total amount due $284,000, payable within 30 days of receipt. Failure to comply will result in foreclosure proceedings against the property at 428 Maple Ridge Drive." She stopped, looked at me. Her face was white, actually white, like she'd seen a ghost. "What the hell is this?" I closed my book, set it on the coffee table, looked at both of them. "Calm, steady. That's a promissory note you signed 3 years ago. The one you thought was just paperwork. Turns out it wasn't." Mark was still staring at the letter. "Dad, we don't have this kind of money. $284,000? We can't pay this. You know we can't. Then you'll need to figure something out." Karen's hands were shaking. The letter rattled. "You can't do this. This is insane. This is illegal." "It's not illegal. It's a legally binding contract. You borrowed money. You signed a promissory note acknowledging the debt. The note is secured against the property. I'm exercising my right to call the loan. That's how secure debt works." "But you said it was a gift." Karen's voice was rising, getting shrill. "You said we didn't have to pay it back." "I said you didn't have to worry about paying it back, as long as everything was fine. But things aren't fine. So now you do have to pay it back." Mark found his voice. "Dad, please. This will destroy us. We'll lose the house. Everything we've built. You can't do this. I'm your son." I stood up, slowly, looked him right in the eye. 3 weeks ago, your wife threw my father's Purple Heart in the garbage. She threw your mother's ashes in the garbage. And when I told you what happened, you told me it was just stuff, just things, that I needed to move on. You chose her over your mother's memory." Karen exploded. "This is about that stupid box. You're destroying our lives over ashes and an old medal." "No, Karen. I'm not destroying your lives over ashes. I'm destroying your lives over respect, over basic human decency, over the fact that you live in a house you never actually paid for, and you treat the person who gave it to you like an inconvenience, like garbage. We didn't ask you to give us the money. You sent me 17 text messages begging for it. You called it the one in all caps with 3 exclamation points. You absolutely asked for it. You just didn't expect to have to honor the agreement you signed. Mark's voice cracked. Dad, please. We'll apologize. We'll make it right. We'll do anything. Please don't do this. We'll lose everything. I picked up my book, headed toward the stairs. Stopped. Turned back. No, Mark. You won't lose everything. You'll lose the house. There's a difference. Everything is what I lost when your wife threw your mother away and you stood there and let her. The house is just stuff. Material objects. I thought you understood that. His face crumpled. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. You meant exactly what you said. And now I'm doing exactly what that promissory note says I can do. You have 30 days. I went upstairs, closed the door to my room, sat on the bed, listened to them arguing downstairs. Karen screaming, Mark trying to calm her, both of them panicking. And I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Not happiness. Not satisfaction. Just peace. The kind that comes when you stop accepting unacceptable things. When you stop letting people walk on you because they're family. When you remember that dignity isn't negotiable. They tried everything over the next 30 days. Begging, crying, bargaining, threatening. Karen's parents called me a monster, said I was cruel, said family doesn't do this to family. I told them to ask their daughter how family treats family, how she treats other people's memories and belongings. They hung up on me. Mark tried reasoning, tried guilt, reminded me of his childhood, of teaching him to ride a bike, of ball games and camping trips, all the good times. I listened, didn't argue, just said, you have 23 days left. They went to their bank, tried to refinance, tried to take out a home equity line. But the house was already collateralized. The bank saw the promissory note, saw that I had first position as a secured creditor, told them there was nothing they could do. Karen tried to claim the note was invalid, claimed she was coerced, claimed she didn't understand what she was signing. George laughed when he told me, said she'd signed every page, initialed every paragraph, had the opportunity to consult independent counsel. It was airtight. They called lawyers, got consultations. Every single one told them the same thing. The note was valid, enforceable, secured. They had no defense. Their only option was to pay or lose the house. Day 30 came and went. No payment, no payment plan, nothing. George filed the foreclosure paperwork. The house went into default. Mark and Karen had 90 days before the sheriff would physically remove them. They sold, had to, found a buyer in 68 days. The market was hot. Houses were moving fast. They got $800,000. The math worked out exactly like I knew it would, like George had explained 3 years ago when we drafted that note. $500,000 went to their primary mortgage lender. First position. Has to be paid before anyone else gets a dime. $284,000 came to me. Second position, secured debt. Had to be paid before they could see any proceeds. After closing costs, realtor fees, transfer taxes, and various other expenses, Mark and Karen walked away with about $16,000. 16 grand. That's what remained of their dream house. Their equity. Their investment. The life they thought they were building. Karen's last words to me were delivered through Mark. She wouldn't even look at me anymore. She'd moved back in with her parents 2 weeks before the closing. Mark stood in the driveway while the moving truck was being loaded, looked at me with hollow eyes. Karen wants you to know she hopes you're happy. She hopes it was worth it. Destroying your own son's life. I thought about that. About happiness. About worth. About whether this was about destruction or justice. Mark, I said, I didn't destroy your life. I removed my subsidy from it. There's a difference. You and Karen built a life on money you didn't earn and didn't respect. When that money came with conditions, you ignored them. Now you're learning what your life actually costs when you have to pay for it yourself. He stared at me. I thought you loved me. I do love you. That's why I helped you in the first place. But love doesn't mean letting someone disrespect your dead wife. Love doesn't mean accepting unacceptable behavior just because it's easier. Your mother loved you, and you let your wife throw her away. You think she'd be proud of that. He didn't answer, just got in his car and drove away. I haven't heard from him since. I took my $284,000 and bought a small house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, near the water in Delaware. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, paid in cash. No mortgage, no debt, no obligations. I have one photo of Helen, the one I kept in my wallet, the one that survived everything. She's smiling in it, standing in our old garden, holding tomatoes she grew herself. It sits on my nightstand in a simple frame. That's all I need. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, usually at the VFW when guys hear the story. They want to know if I feel guilty, if I miss my son, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is complicated. Do I wish Mark had been a better man? Yes. Do I wish Karen had shown basic human decency? Absolutely. Do I wish none of this had happened? Of course. But do I regret making them pay for what they did? Not even a little bit. Because my father, the one whose Purple Heart ended up in a landfill, he taught me something important. He'd tell me, son, you can forgive a debt. You can forgive a mistake. But you can't forgive disrespect. Because disrespect means they never valued you in the first place. And you can't miss something you never really had. I never had a son who valued me. I had a boy who wanted my money and called me dad because that's what you call the person who writes the checks. When the check stopped, so did the relationship. That tells me everything I need to know. So I stopped writing checks, and he stopped calling, and we both got what we deserved. There's a veterans group I go to now. Every Thursday morning at the VFW hall, we drink bad coffee and tell old stories, and nobody asks about your family unless you bring it up first. These guys get it. They understand that sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones you trusted the most. Last week, a new guy showed up, younger, Iraq veteran, said his brother stole his disability check to buy a motorcycle, asked if he was wrong to press charges. Everyone at the table looked at me. I told him what my father told me, about giving with warm hands, about protecting yourself, about putting things in writing, about the difference between love and enabling. Then I told him about promissory notes. He listened, nodded, filed charges the next day. I sleep fine now. No nightmares. No guilt. No what-ifs keeping me awake. Sometimes late at night, I think about Mark. Wonder if he learned anything. Wonder if he ever thinks about his mother. Wonder if he understands yet why I did what I did. Probably not. Some people never learn. They go through life thinking the world is unfair, never realizing they're the ones making it that way. But that's not my problem anymore. I did what a father is supposed to do. I helped when asked. I gave generously. I loved unconditionally. Right up until my love and my generosity and my wife's memory were thrown in the garbage on trash collection day. Then I stopped being a father and became a creditor. And creditors don't have to forgive. They just have to collect. There's a quote I read somewhere, might have been Hemingway, might have been something on a bumper sticker, said, "The best revenge is living well." That's half right. The best revenge is living well after making sure the people who wronged you pay for it, not because you're vindictive, but because actions have consequences, because respect is earned through behavior, not demanded through biology, because family isn't family just because you share DNA. Family is earned with actions, not words, with respect, not convenience, with love that goes both ways. Mark and Karen forgot that. I reminded them. And if that makes me the villain in their story, I can live with it. Because in my story, I'm the guy who finally learned that the kindest thing you can do for yourself is stop being kind to people who mistake kindness for weakness. I'm the guy who learned that patience isn't the same as being a doormat. That silence is an agreement. That taking a high road doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I'm the guy who woke up. And once you wake up, once you really see things clearly, you can't go back to sleep. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unfeel what you felt. The old soldier's code hasn't changed. Adapt, overcome, survive. I adapted to their disrespect by documenting it. I overcame my guilt by remembering what they did. I survived by cutting out the rot before it spread. Helen would understand. She was always smarter than me. She saw through fake people from a mile away. She'd probably laugh at how long it took me to figure it out, but she'd also be proud that I finally did. At least I like to think so. I'm 65 years old. Too old for fake relationships and convenient love. Too old to accept disrespect just to keep the peace. Too old to confuse being nice with being respected. My father used to say one more thing. Last thing he told me before he died. He grabbed my hand and said, "Frank, don't let people take from you and then act like you're the problem when you stop giving. That's not family. That's theft with a smile." Mark and Karen smiled at me for 3 years. Took my money, took my dignity, took my past and threw it away. Then acted shocked when I presented the bill. But bills always come due. Sometimes they just take a while to arrive. And when they do, you can pay cash. Or you can pay with everything you have. They chose everything. I chose peace. And you know what? I got it. Every morning, I wake up in my little house by the water, make coffee the way I like it, sit on my porch and watch the sunrise, fish when I want to, read when I want to, talk to people who actually want to talk to me. No passive-aggressive notes. No walking on eggshells. No pretending everything's fine when it's not. No being treated like a burden in a house I bought. Just me, my memories, my dignity, and enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. The old soldier finally found his peace, not by winning the war, but by refusing to keep fighting a battle he'd already lost. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop playing their game and start playing yours. And my game had rules. Written rules. Signed rules. Enforceable rules. They forgot about the rules. I didn't. Game over.